my son being my most important human in my life, I wasn't showing up for him. And somebody said to me, what you don't fix in yourself, you pass along to your child. And that was like a punch in the
Woo.
gut. Yeah, that was just, oof, wow. Um, so at that point, I made the decision to make a change. And I did. And I never went back. I never went back to drinking. I never went back to that destructive lifestyle. And it took a while, though, to work on the shame and the guilt and the regret that we carry with us when we don't show up in a way that we're proud of.
What's up, you beautiful beasts? I'm Katie. I'm on a mission to help humans become their favorite versions of themselves and to strive for overall health by healing their relationship to food and exercise, healing their relationship to their body, and most importantly, healing their relationship to themselves, all without ever having to step on a scale. I have had the privilege to talk to all kinds of different humans who have been through a plethora of experiences just being a human and existing. I believe that every single time someone shares their story, at least one person listening will learn from it, be inspired by it, and maybe, just maybe, even change the entire direction of their life. These are the stories of humans unveiling their beautiful beast. Keep listening. This is the Unveiling the Beast podcast. So welcome to the Unveiling the Beast podcast. Thank you for saying yes and coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm super interested in the mindset coaching for women piece that you put in your, I guess it'd be the calendar application. I don't even know what to call it. Doesn't matter. Um, but first I want to ask you, can you tell the listeners a little bit about who you are and why you think you might be who you are?
Absolutely. So, my name's Karen Sarmento, and I am a nurse practitioner who has now become a mindset mentor for women. And I guess my story starts out fairly boring because I just did everything that I was supposed to do. I did all the normal, the school, the checked all the boxes.
Mm.
And then I hit this stage in midlife where my life just got rattled. So, at a time when everything should have just been perfect, or seemingly things were perfect, um, my son's father passed away very unexpectedly in an accident, and I began drinking. And my world that I knew that was very normal, boring, and stable pretty much got turned upside down. And
Mm.
although it was an awful time, it allowed it to come back together differently. And that's kind of where my career transitioned as well. So that's how I went
Mm.
from being a nurse practitioner, which I still am. I didn't dislike the career. I didn't. I just, my personal journey took me down another path. I felt like I had a bigger calling. And in the
Mm.
spirit of your podcast, I feel like when you get that little inner calling that there's more of a beast inside you. Um, when you
Yes.
have the opportunity to listen, we should.
Yeah. I like that you talk about checking the boxes.
Mhm.
This is a common theme that's been coming up, and one of the things that I've discussed with past guests is that we're on this path that we think we're supposed to be on. We make this checklist of everything we think we're supposed to be doing, and a lot of times we don't stop to analyze if these are even things we want. Like, are
Mhm.
these things that we want, or is this stuff that the outside world told us that we're supposed to have? And so I love that you bring up the checklist.
Mhm. I got goosebumps actually as you were saying that, because it's like it was always all about the checklist. It was the next degree, the next certification, the next
Mhm.
external source of validation that I'm okay. I'm doing well because I got another certification or I got my master's. So check that.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes there's people who like to have the certifications or the degree to just to say that they have it. I actually used to joke and say, I'm going to get a PhD just to say that I did it. Like,
Right?
but, and it's like, why don't we, like, we can still get the certifications in the topics that we're interested in
Mhm.
and then take the next step to embody the the I don't want to call it the education, but like embody the work that the certification is intended for us to do. Does that make sense?
It does. It makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about the mindset mentorship.
Yes. So I spend a lot of time with women, and it tends to be women in midlife because it seems like that's where it kind of clicks that, huh, like I've done all these things and how come I still feel so empty? So the mentorships, it really starts with taking a moment to be aware of where you are and what you're doing and why you're doing some of the things you're doing. And oftentimes we don't even take a moment to really stop and look at our life and to even question some of the things that we think or some of the things that we do. Does it
Mhm.
even make sense? Or why am I doing it that way? Or, huh. So it starts with being willing to take a look at ourselves and doing a little self inventory. What things in my life are serving me? What things are not? And being a people pleaser by nature. I used to just, it was always about making sure everybody else was happy and everything was okay and everything was just by the book. And um, taking a moment to just recognize why you're doing the things you're doing. And
Yeah,
that's where it all starts.
yeah. It kind of goes back to the checklist.
It does. And then being
Yeah,
willing to question the checklist. And maybe some things on the checklist matter. Maybe they do. Maybe that's super important. We'll leave that there. And that makes
yeah,
me good. And that's part of who I am, or that's something I need to do. But then there's some stuff I'm sure on the checklist that can go that just doesn't serve you. And it's being willing to question the beliefs that come up when you make a decision to change something because it's not always received well by everybody. And that may be our own misperceived interpretation as well, because
yeah,
it's hard to do things. Well, I say it's hard, but it's a decision. And stepping out of the way you always did things is a challenge. And stepping outside your comfort zone to do something different is challenging.
yeah. So are you open and willing to go a little bit deeper into your story? In hoping with hopes that maybe somebody listening can be inspired by it.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I know, yes, in your intro, that's kind of what you say, that even if just one person hears something that, yeah, that makes
Mission accomplished. Yeah. Hmm.
of that mission accomplished. So, I think where my story stopped being boring, which today I'll take boring over, boring's great, but
Amen.
amen to boring. Um, where my story stopped being boring was so when my son's father passed away unexpectedly in an accident, and I just did not handle any of that well. I didn't handle it in a way that I was proud of, and I didn't handle it in a way where I showed up for my son, most importantly, who needed me at that time. And I didn't show up for myself in a way that was constructive or productive in any way, shape, or form. And I relied on alcohol to get through days. And that became just a way of coping. And it was numbing everything out, not experiencing any emotions, and really just going through the motion of every day, just getting through the day. And it wasn't living, it wasn't productive, and it didn't serve anybody. And finally, I had a really great support system. My family held an intervention where they all showed up at my house. I was on my way home from work. I got home from work and everybody was at my house. And this wasn't going to be good because I knew I wasn't in a good place. So it was like the unspoken issue. And
Yeah.
everybody was there. They had hired somebody to do a professional intervention. And everybody went around speaking all their concerns about me and how I was showing up, how I was not showing up, and when I was showing up, how terrible it was. And it was a period of time filled with shame and guilt and regret, but not knowing how to get out of it, not knowing how to step off the hamster wheel, knowing this is destructive, knowing I'm not showing up in a way I'm proud of, but not being able to break the cycle. So that day they held that intervention was life changing. And one of the things that was said to me, my son being my most important human in my life, I wasn't showing up for him. And somebody said to me, what you don't fix in yourself, you pass along to your child. And that was like a punch in
Woo.
the gut. Yeah, that was just, oof, wow. Um, so at that point, I made the decision to make a change. And I did. And I never went back. I never went back to drinking. I never went back to that destructive lifestyle. And it took a while, though, to work on the shame and the guilt and the regret that we carry with us when we don't show up in a way that we're proud of. Or if we make a mistake, which I don't even like to use that word anymore, because any mistakes I've made or periods of time in my life that I'm not proud of, I can now see how they served me or kind of helped catapult me in a different direction. But I think for the listeners, what I would want somebody to hear is that shame and the guilt and the heaviness of that holds us back from making a forward move because we don't feel worthy of it. So we just
Mm.
continue to stay small and feel small. And then we get smaller and smaller, and it just grows.
Yeah. I resonate so much with your story. Specifically because I have a son also. He's 7. And
Mm,
the part where you said what you don't, I don't remember the exact words, but what I heard was what you don't heal in yourself, you pass on. And yeah, that was like, woo!
mm,
Because I see myself in him, and
mhm.
all the parts of me I see in him. And sometimes I'm like, ooh, I need to fix that. Because I'm a coach, I'm constantly analyzing how am I messing up my child? Because I work with
Yes.
people and I go, we go to their past, we go to how they were raised. I'm not saying that anybody's parents were horrible. It's just they were doing the best they could. But because I'm always in this mindset of like trying to find clues and curiosity and stuff, I'm constantly like looking at my son in a way like, what am I doing to him? Is he going to be okay? And so,
Yes.
yeah, that really, mm,
It's so true. And I'm always looking for those things like, hey, did I cause that? Is that my fault? And I always feel, and as a mom, like giving him the opportunity, because going through different stages in his life with loss or what we've been through, um, giving him the opportunity to express any of that he may still think of or carry with him. So there is that opportunity to discuss openly anything from childhood that gets carried on. Because, like you just said, our parents, everybody's doing the best they can and with what they know. If we knew better,
yeah.
we'd do better.
Yeah. Also the guilt and shame piece. A lot of people who hold on to guilt and shame, they do it in isolation because they think they're not worthy enough, as you said, to go out and live their lives how they want because they're holding on to this thing that they're either currently doing or did in the past or whatever. And so, one thing I like to ask, and I can ask this for the listeners, if that is you, it is first of all, if the thing is in the past,
Mhm.
that past version of you, what did that person need in that moment when you did the thing, whatever the thing is? And then if it's currently happening, what do you need? What need are you trying to fill by doing this thing that's making you feel guilty and full of shame? Just a tip.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
And the guilt and shame, it's such a heavy burden to carry. It
Yeah.
just, yeah, it just holds you back. And it's hard for people to come forward when they are carrying something that they feel is shameful or that they have guilt around because they're so afraid of being found out, and somebody might find out that I'm not perfect or I'm not normal or and I don't even know what normal is, but we're so
Right.
afraid of being found out that we're not perfect, and we're not. I don't
Yeah.
know anybody that is, and feel like everybody's carrying a little something around with them, and it's okay.
And especially when you do it in isolation, because it's kind of like a cycle or like you're doing it in isolation and doing it in isolation keeps you in the isolation. I hope this is making sense. And so you don't understand the power of maybe even just telling one person, like a therapist or a coach, what
Mhm.
that thing is that you did or are doing and how much freedom it gives you mentally just by opening up and telling somebody because now not it's not locked away anymore in isolation. Now, oh my gosh, one person knows, you know? And guess what? You didn't die and they didn't judge you.
Right?
Yeah.
No, it's so true. And with that isolation, yeah, it becomes darker and darker, and then you hide more and more. And when we start to talk about it or in community, you realize you're not alone and you're not all that different. That there's other people with the same stuff. And I mean, I love the concept behind your podcasts too, that even if just one person hears something that makes them realize they're not alone,
Yeah.
or that there's possibility.
Yeah. So many times too when I'm interviewing somebody, that person's me. Because I've been meeting with a lot of really cool people, including you.
Mhm.
So a lot of times it's
That's what
me. I'm the one person. Um,
So you make me laugh when you say that, because sometimes when I'm on a podcast, I have my own podcast as well. And when I'll be interviewing somebody, I swear the most perfect people are just brought to me. But sometimes I'll say, "So for the listeners," but really it's for me. Like I'm
yeah,
curious. The
yeah.
listeners are curious.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
So going back to the people that you help, um,
Mhm.
is there like a common thread between them, or is there a common issue that they might present, or a common limiting belief that they might have that that kind of brings them to you, to where your energy is like, come to me, I can help you.
Yes. I find I tend to attract people that are the version of me from probably 7 or 8 years ago. Someone who lacks confidence, um, playing small, just a lot of self-doubt, a lot of self-worth issues, um, not a whole lot of belief in themselves that they're capable of more. And I think it's typically carrying around regret and shame or guilt, those heavy things that make them play small and continue to feel small. And I really believe that we're most qualified to help the person that's the version we used to be. And
100%.
yeah, you're an expert on that person. So I think I attract the unhealed version of myself.
Mm, I love that.
Yeah.
I
I agree with you. I think those people are I don't want to say the easiest to serve, but it's like we know them inside and out almost. And not to say that their adventure is going to be the same as ours because they're different people, but there's like specific things about them that you're like, oh yeah, I had that. Oh yeah, I had that. Oh, that was me. Oh yep, yep, that was me too.
Yep, yep.
Yeah,
I got you. I get it. I've been there. And then you also know that there's a way out. You also know that, yeah, I've been there. I totally get it, but you don't have to stay there.
yeah,
And it becomes a choice. And that's where kind of the mindset coaching comes in. And you have to be willing to look at yourself and willing to be accountable for some things. And because I do believe that we create our reality. So your inner thoughts are definitely creating your world.
yeah. I think it's also helpful too that, or when our clients know that we're still healing also. Because healing is a forever thing, I think, in my opinion, uh, especially since a lot of our beliefs have been there since childhood and we just didn't even know, you know? And so I think it helps when our clients know that we're still healing. We're just like a few steps ahead of them. Yeah.
That's such a great point because you're right. There isn't an end point. We're always growing and going through things and coming out on the other side.
Yeah. I used to think there was like an end point to personal growth and development. I'm like,
Mhm.
I'm gonna do all the steps. I'm gonna check the boxes on the list, and then I'm gonna be healed and personally developed, and I'm gonna get to this place, and that's it. That's gonna be
That's
my
going to be
life.
it. Yep. Then I'm going to live my life and it's going to be my best life because I took that program.
Mhm. And
That'll be the end of it.
yeah, and then things will be good. And then I will love myself, and then I will accept myself as I am, and then all the good things will come.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's big when people know that they can do that right now. They don't have to do the thing first. Does that make sense?
It absolutely makes sense. Yes, you can be that person now. And then by doing so, you attract more of that good into your life.
Hmm. Yeah.
And another important thing too is that we don't have to have all the answers. Like as your listeners are making decisions, like I want to do something differently. The next steps they get revealed to you along the way.
Hmm.
But when you start to think differently, you start to show up differently, even just small little tweaks in your behaviors or your thought process can really shift your world pretty dramatically.
Hmm. What brings you the most joy in what you're doing now? In all aspects of your life, not just your work.
I feel there's, I guess, two parts to that. So in my personal life, I feel like I show up strong now, like a more confident version of myself. So I set a better example for my son. When I'm telling him things like you could go for it, you go for your dreams, or you can be anything you want to be, and that I'm actually pursuing my dreams and I'm actually pursuing my best life and always trying to hold myself to a standard of somewhat of excellence, not perfection, but just having a high standard for myself. And
Mm-hmm.
then in my career, one of the things that brings me joy is when I can see someone I'm working with, another woman, um, begin to see it in herself. When I can start to see the shift that she's actually starting to believe that she's worthy of more. I think that's one of my favorite things when they start pursuing different things and you can see that the self-worth is there. It's coming back.
Yeah. And sometimes it just takes like the tiniest shift. Like it doesn't have to be this big huge breakthrough. Sometimes it's just like they hear something and they're like, oh, click, I get it. Okay.
Yeah, definitely. And just the decision sometimes to, I'm going to do things differently. I'm going to do things differently. And when you make that decision, you start to show up differently. And
Mm,
I think you can have fun with it too. Like just think of some qualities and either attributes in other people that you think would be the version of yourself that you kind of aspire to be, and just start showing up that way. Start showing up differently, and it becomes your new normal.
yeah.
I don't love that saying, the new normal, but it seemed to fit.
Yeah. So I have two big questions left for you. Well, maybe not big, but um, I am in the health space, which I think you were part of the Facebook group, the Need a Guest. So
Yes.
are you okay? So you were from the post. So my work is helping people look at health um in a, I don't like using the word holistic, but I guess that's the word, where it's not just what we eat and how we move. It's things like, do you get enough sleep? Are you healing your mind? Are you connecting with other people and having healthy relationships? Are you decluttering the spaces around you in a way that you like? Are you de-stressing? Those kinds of things.
Mhm.
And so my question for you would be, with everything you're doing in your life and in your work, how do you think this affects your health and the health of the clients that you work with?
Just to make sure I understood the question appropriately. So, how my work that I'm doing now, just in general, what I'm doing with
Mhm.
people affects
Yeah.
everybody's health. Um, so it's such a good question because, and I love how you pointed out that it isn't just one thing. Like it's definitely not about a number on a scale, or it's not just about drinking the water, but it's an overall way of seeing yourself as a healthy individual. And it isn't just one thing that I do, but it's a way of living, and it's a way of seeing yourself. So I see myself as a healthy individual. So therefore I show up as one. So I don't do
Mm,
things that aren't good for my body, or yeah, that don't serve me well. So it's kind of an accumulation of the little things you do throughout each day. And I think as you start to value yourself more, you start to be kinder to yourself and more respectful of yourself and your body. So all those little decisions like drinking water, honoring the fact that, hey, I'm tired. I'm going to bed early tonight. And I don't think that makes me lazy. Because there was a time where I would have thought taking a nap or going to bed early made me late. That means that person's lazy.
yeah.
So honoring those things, taking the time to get out in nature. Um, so I think when you start to see things differently and respect yourself and have self-worth, you just start to treat yourself differently and show up differently.
Yeah. I 100% agree. And I'd like to add a piece to that, if that's okay with you.
Oh, I'd love it.
It also, like when we start seeing ourselves that way, like you're talking about, we also start to give ourselves more grace. For when we don't get all the sleep, or when we don't, you know, eat all the good things and drink all the water. Like sometimes we just don't, and that's okay. And we can give ourselves grace for it.
Yes, I think that's so important to point out because
Mhm.
when we hold that perfection sort of standard, it's not sustainable. So
Right.
being able to, yeah, absolutely.
Mm. Well, I have one more question for you. And I ask
Yes.
everybody at the end of every episode, and that is, if you had one piece of advice that you could give to the world, what would it be?
It would be to know that everything you need, all the answers, everything is within you already. And if you're just able to step back and listen to that, your inner self, all the answers are there, and to question any of those limiting beliefs that are holding you back, because we weren't meant to play small. I believe we're all here for a purpose. And I think when you get those little whispers or those little nudges pushing you in another direction, it's because you have a greater purpose. So I think our thoughts do create our reality. So to pay close attention to your thoughts and to question the limiting beliefs that don't serve you.
Beautiful beasts, Karen Sarmento signing off. Until next time.